Are you thinking about joining Which? Well, I've got some good news. If you join before the 1st of July 2025, we'll say thanks with a £20 John Lewis gift card. All you have to do is sign up for an annual subscription. So that could be full access, digital or magazine, then stick around for 14 days and boom, gift card incoming. Remember, we independently buy, test and review thousands of products each year, from air fryers to electric cars, so you can make better choices and avoid total flops. Become a Which member today. Cancel anytime, offer ends 1st of July 2025, T's and C's apply.
Supermarket loyalty cards, an easy way to grab a discount or a way of unfairly excluding millions of potential shoppers. Welcome to Which Money. Hello, I'm Lucia Ariano, and joining us this week we have a familiar voice on the show. She's senior researcher here at Which, Ellie Simmons. Hello, Ellie.
Hello, thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for joining us. And we also have a full studio because we're joined by 3 special guests from the charity Barnardo's, and more specifically their youth advisory group. And let's go around the table now. I'll introduce you all. So we've got Ali Cooper. Hi, Ali.
There.
We've got Ola Anriti Alalua.
Hello.
Hello. And we've got Becca Wolford.
Hi.
Hello, thank you all so much for joining us. Shall we just start with a little introduction to you and what you do at Barnardo's?
Yeah, so I'm Ali. I work at Barnardo's in the policy team and I focus on child poverty. But we're actually here as part of our fantastic partnership with the Co-op, which I'll let these guys talk about a bit.
So, hi, I'm Becca. I'm a member of the Youth Advisory Group. So, specifically, we look at influencing change, which is included in our report, which is why we've come in today.
And Ola, what do you do at Barnardo's?
I particularly work in the digital subgroup, so that is mainly around creating digital content for the partnership. But I did have a transfer into the advocacy subgroup, and I was also involved in writing the report.
Well, thank you all so much for joining us today. I'm really excited to hear your view on everything we're going to be talking about. And I'm sure we'll be diving deeper into the report as we go through the show. Ellie, today we're talking about loyalty cards. Can you just remind us about some of the work you've done here at Which on loyalty cards in the past?
Yeah, we've done lots of work on loyalty cards over the last few years. We've done kind of 2 strands of work, if you like. One has been looking at whether or not the prices offered by loyalty cards are genuine savings. So that's where one price is offered to members of a supermarket or another retailer's loyalty scheme, and another price is offered to everybody else. And we've done a lot of work looking at whether those higher non-member prices are really genuine. We've done a lot of digging into pricing history, and we found some examples across supermarkets and other retailers where some of those non-member prices have looked not to be the kind of usual selling price of a product. So we found lots of examples where those prices don't appear to be very genuine. We've also done a separate strand of work where we've looked at accessibility of those loyalty prices, because there's been a big shift recently in pricing in many retailers. And it used to be that discounts were offered to everybody. And in particular in the supermarkets, now often those discounts are only offered to people who are able or willing to sign up to a loyalty card.
It's quite frustrating, isn't it? I mean, I just find that personally shopping, I always run out of storage on my phone. So I don't have the apps of all the supermarkets with my loyalty cards ready to go. So I always find myself being caught out. And that's just, one very minor point.
Yeah, it's really annoying. It's happened to me. I remember we were travelling to meet a friend through a town I didn't know, and we stopped to buy some essentials for lunch, and it was in a Morrison's. I don't normally shop in a Morrison's, and I had to pay a lot more for the meal deal that we were buying than I would have done because I didn't have a Morrison's loyalty card, and I didn't really want a Morrison's loyalty card because I don't normally shop in Morrison's, but it is quite unfair and annoying when you have to pay more than everybody else for something.
And you're nodding. Do you use loyalty cards?
Yeah, I'm just very much relating to that hassle of like trying to find the app or the right thing on your phone. I've often struggled to find the right thing, and the really annoying bit is that actually it's quite a big saving. So it does make quite a big difference to the shop, and just not having the right sign up can really affect the price that you pay.
Yeah. And I think those examples are kind of one-offs, perhaps, me travelling through a town I don't normally travel through, at a shop I don't normally shop in. But we've uncovered the fact that actually some of that unfairness, some of that injustice is applied to people in a far more serious way. So there are millions of people across the country who can't sign up to loyalty cards, even if they wanted to, through no fault of their own at all. So through things like their age, their address, or their digital access requirements. So many of these loyalty cards, which, as I said, unlock these quite hefty discounts, can only be accessed by people often who are over 18, who have a UK address or residency, or who have an email address or access to an app. And we don't think that's fair here at Which. We want to see retailers opening up those discounts that used to be available to all. We want them to still be available to those people who, not by choice, but by their own situation in life, are unable to access them. So we want them to be opened up to those people.
And as you said, it can be huge discounts, especially if you're thinking over the course of the year. So it really is unfair. And can we bring you in now then from Barnardo's? How much of a concern is this for you?
Yeah, it's a massive concern for us because within Barnardo's, we work with a broad range of children and young people. So, for example, care leavers or young carers, if they're under the age of 18, they're not able to access it. And they're two groups of young people who, if anything, really need that because they are at a disadvantage because of no fault of their own, because of the situations they're in. And so especially someone caring for an older person, being a young carer, you're having to go out and you're actually buying stuff for someone over the age of 18, but you're not able to use that discount because you're under 18.
And how widespread a problem is this? How, I'm really interested to know, because it's so useful hearing your insight of the actual people, experiencing these difficulties. How often, might you come across this, or, are there any more examples of people who you've encountered with similar difficulties?
Yeah, so I think it's quite hard to know the number of young people who would want to access the loyalty schemes that can't currently access them. But what we do know, and as part of the research that we published last year as part of our partnership with the Co-op, we reached out to 50,000 young people with Folks for Schools, and we asked them, can you access healthy food in your community? And about a quarter of them, 23%, said that they couldn't. And that's a lot of young people. And what was really interesting in that research was that the affordability of product and including food was a real issue for young people, and that is something that comes out really clearly. So for that 16, 17-year-old age group, not able to access those discounts all of the time at all retailers, that is a serious issue.
And Ellie, I'm really interested as well to bring in some of the examples where the prices you found, and we found at Which, without the loyalty cards, aren't a very fair price to begin with.
Yeah, so we've dug into the pricing history of thousands of products on loyalty price at a range of supermarkets and also at Boots and Superdrug, and found quite a lot of examples that don't appear to be entirely genuine. We found quite a lot of examples that have quite questionable non-member prices. So, for example, at Tesco, this was last year, we found some Stella Artois beer, 18 cans. The non-member price was $16.99. The member price was £13. So it sounds like a great deal. But that $16.99 price had only been in place for 7 days before the promotion started. And before that, they were $15.99 for many weeks. It was the same over at Sainsbury's as well. We looked at some Bird's Eye chicken nuggets. Non-member price was £5.50. Members got a great saving, so it appeared for £4. But they were only £5.50 for just 3 weeks before that offer launched, and before that they were £5 for everyone. So there's quite a lot of examples like that we found.
Very shocking, isn't it? And I know that there's another strand to this where it can also be quite difficult to work out how to compare prices when you're given these, loyalty card prices. And has that changed at all?
So it can be really difficult to compare prices across supermarkets because you might have a loyalty card in one, not a loyalty card in the other. There are so many different types of supermarket discount. There are 3 for 2, 2 for 1, rollback, loyalty prices, just a straightforward kind of was now price. There are so many different discounts that it can really confuse people. There's also things like Aldi Price Match. There are what's called like low everyday prices, which I think just means like it is meant to be a good price. But there are so many of these promotions that kind of jump out at you in the supermarket that it is almost impossible to work out what the actual usual normal price of a product is. And very often the truth is there probably isn't really an actual normal price. A lot of these products yo-yo from a high price to a low price, and people paying that low price might think they're getting a discount, but actually what it is those higher prices are, when they pay the high prices, those high prices are probably more than they should pay, and the real price is probably somewhere in the middle of those two prices.
And I was also thinking about the price per, which can make it quite difficult to, and you're nodding as well, Becca, is that something that you've experienced?
Yeah, so having a mum as a caterer, I quite often go shopping with her, and we usually go to the big outlets like Costco or Booker's and stuff. So there is a significant difference you can see. But I've now realised when I'm shopping, I'm looking at the price per, because I've got so used to doing it with my mum that I'm looking at the price per and going, oh, actually, it's better value to buy the bigger one, even if I don't necessarily need it at the time, especially for ambient foods that have a longer shelf life. It's actually, in the long run, better to buy that bigger product and pay that little bit more, because actually when you look at the price per, sometimes you can look at it and it's like, for the smaller one, it's like 98p per kilogram, per gram.
100 mils
100 mils, any of that. Whereas when you then look at the bigger one, it's like 63p. And actually, when you're looking at that, that's a big difference over time, because you're going to have to go back in and buy that small product again. And so you're then spending more than you necessarily need to. But I think where they put it in such small text at the bottom, people don't look at it. And I wasn't really aware of it. I didn't really think of it. I just go grab something off the shelf until I've now look at it more. And it's actually like, that's really surprising, but it's always not in bold and such small text that people don't see it.
And it's not always standard either, is it? So you might have, 98p per 100 mil, but then you might have 97. I'm trying to do the maths. I'm trying to do the quick maths. But you might have another one that's per 1,000 mil. Then you might have price per can. So it's actually so difficult to compare, especially when you're just shopping. Doing your quick shop, you don't necessarily have time to stop and get your calculator out. So is this something that you talk to many people about? Are you advising people on how to use these price per?
Like sometimes if I'm with my friends and I'm out shopping and they'll look at me like, what are you doing? Because they don't get it. They're like, what are you doing? And I'm like, well, actually, if you look at this bit, I'm actually saving money because I'm 24. I can't afford to be spending loads and loads of money on a shop that is if I'm shopping for my family. So, and looking at the price per, but so a few of my friends now pick up on it because they're like, oh, I didn't even think of that. And I said, I didn't think of it either until I was noticed it. Even from working in a supermarket, I didn't really notice it because it's not something that we talk about.
Something we need to shout about, I think. And Ellie, the loyalty card prices, do they always have a price per figure on as well?
So that's a really interesting question. They didn't used to have a price per. So price per is also known as unit pricing, where it's a price per 100 grams or a price per unit, so that you can fairly compare prices for products across different products and different ranges. So when we first looked into this a year or two ago, we found that Tesco Clubcard prices in particular didn't have unit pricing on them, which meant that it was virtually impossible without a calculator and some significant maths knowledge to actually work out if you were paying a better price for something when you're in the aisle compared to something else. So, for example, there'd be something on a Clubcard price at Tesco and something not on a Clubcard price. It might be the same product but in different size packs or a slightly different kind of format, can versus bottle or something like that. And unless you've got a degree in maths and a calculator, it was virtually impossible to know the cheapest. So we didn't think that was fair. We didn't think it was right. And we went to Tesco. We asked them to change. And actually, they did make a change. And now you will see that there are unit prices on those Tesco Clubcard prices. And that will make it a lot easier for people to compare prices across these different promotions and different food ranges. And I know just personally, it's made my shopping easier because I can see at a glance what is the cheapest option when I'm doing my shopping.
Yeah, I've noticed at Tesco as well. And it really does help because I use it too. But then saying that, I don't know if, say, my parents would use them, price per unit. But it is something we should be shouting about.
It's also something that we've spoken to the Competition and Markets Authority about. So they're the kind of watchdog that's in charge of fairer pricing. And we went to them and raised this as an issue. And obviously Tesco have done it of their own accord. But the CMA have also talked about this issue. And now there are new laws coming into effect in the later part of this year, I think it's October, where it will be the law that these promotions must have unit pricing on them. So our campaigning has helped get a new law on that, which hopefully will make it a lot easier for people to compare prices.
That is a huge win. I can see you nodding, Ali. And did unit pricing come up in the report? Is it something that you've been working with?
No, unit pricing isn't really the focus of the report, but I do really resonate with that fairness point, like making it fair for shoppers to be able to get a discounted product. And for us, that's like a really important point. We just think it's unfair that 16, 17-year-olds can't access some of those discounted prices. And that's something that we think could be quite a quick win. And obviously, supermarkets can change their practices, and that's exactly what we want them to do. And we think that could be a really like direct way of helping young people with savings in their pocket.
Well, shall we get back to kind of the crux of the show then, which is that, and talk about what we think should change, or where should we start? Ali, do you want to start us off?
Yeah, so we published this report last year, A Recipe for Success, and one of the key recommendations in that was looking at 16 and 17-year-olds and whether they could access discounted prices in supermarkets. We called on all retailers to extend their retail discount schemes to 16, 17-year-olds. And we actually the Youth Advisory Group wrote to supermarket CEOs about this. We got a fairly poor response, to be honest.
Yeah, as Becca said, we did get quite a few good responses, but majority of them were quite disappointing. So we think the next step of action is to contact the government and see if this is something they could include in the national food strategy for to make sure that supermarkets are really extending the loyalty card schemes to 16 to 17-year-olds.
It's really interesting. I'm quite surprised that so many supermarkets didn't come back with a positive response. I mean, how did they justify that?
Yeah, we got quite a range of responses, really. So some just didn't respond to us, and we did send a chaser. but some haven't responded to us. Some talked about the fact that some promotions are to do with alcohol, and that affects their ability to offer discounts. We're not really convinced about that one, are we?
No, I'm not really convinced by that one either, actually.
The reason being because obviously you can tailor discounts to different audiences, so we're not quite convinced about that one. And then we another retailer said that it was to do with data protection. However, we're also not quite convinced about that because generally speaking, when someone is 13 or over, they can consent to having their data shared. So I think our sort of overall approach with this is like, we'd like to have a conversation with the supermarkets about this. We think it's a really important issue. And if there are blockers in the way, we'd like to be involved with solving them and making sure that young people can access discounted prices.
I think it's worth saying as well that there are retailers out there who do offer loyalty discounts to under 18s and some under 16s as well. So there are obviously some retailers out there who think it can be done and are in fact doing it. So it would indicate that those blockers maybe aren't as blocking as they might first appear.
And can we hear about some of those kind of shining examples in this situation?
Yeah, so both Boots and Superdrug, they obviously offer kind of pharmaceuticals and toiletries and health and beauty products. They have much lower restrictions on their loyalty cards. I think it's 13 you have to be to sign up to them. So that means all those people 13 and over can access big discounts at Boots and Superdrug, like many of the rest of us can. So that seems more fair. Then there's also the Co-op, which allows 16 and overs to have their own card, and then under 16s to have a card if it's signed up for by a parent or guardian. So that's a really good example as well. So there are retailers out there who are doing this and are doing it well. There are also obviously other retailers who don't have loyalty discounts at all and just let everybody access their low prices.
Well, that would be the
regardless.
ideal situation.
Yes, well, exactly.
So I suppose, I mean, is that something then that we're campaigning for here at Which?
We are campaigning. We recognise that loyalty discounts can provide people with good savings, and we also know that people do like them. So what we want to see is those loyalty discounts accessible to everyone who wants to access them, and the people that cannot access them for reasons of no fault of their own, we want them to be able to access them, and we want the supermarkets to come up with a solution. They are in the best place to know what these blockers are and to unblock them, and that's what we want.
And what do you see as next steps?
We've done lots of work behind the scenes, lots of meetings with them, letters to them, asking them to do this. And now what we're asking is for anyone that's affected by this, or anyone that thinks it's unfair, actually, because you don't have to be directly affected by it to see the injustice in it. We are asking people to tag supermarkets in our social posts to show to those supermarkets that it is unfair and that people do care. Because I don't think at the moment the supermarkets are hearing loud enough that people really care about it and people think it's unfair. And so that's what we're asking anyone listening to do, is to tag your supermarket in our social posts to let them know that we care and that we want some change.
Thank you, Ellie. Super important. And we can pop a link to our social channels in the description of today's show. And from your point of view too, I mean, what can we do to help? You know, how can we get involved?
Yeah, so I think it's about sharing those stories. So Becca mentioned care experienced young people. So for example, if you're living on your own for the first time and you have to go and do the weekly shop, you know, you can't get those discounted prices. So I think it's about telling those stories and how that's not fair. That's really important. And I think, sort of a call out to young people who are being affected to speak up about this, because I think it's not currently enough of a priority for the other supermarkets to take action.
I would second that. I think the more we hear from people that this really affects, about their kind of personal stories, about how it makes a difference, would make a huge impact in how powerful we can be when asking the supermarkets to make a change. So it'd be great to hear any stories.
And would you say that, there are some people that maybe don't realise that they're affected by this? And obviously that in itself is a problem too.
Yeah, so in some of the focus groups we did for our research, like it did come up. So some people were saying, they did mention discount schemes and sometimes they weren't able to access them. But there probably are quite a lot of young people who just aren't aware. I don't know if you guys have got friends or people you know who might be affected by this, but maybe aren't quite aware of the fact that they can't get access to a discount scheme?
Yeah, I would say I do have friends that were like in semi-independent homes, but at the time it was more of like having to like budget and manage what we're being given at the age of 17. So like subconsciously, where we do go to supermarkets, we're mainly just like saying, oh, which one is cheaper, even if it's not something we really want, but we're just trying to save up. But obviously we wouldn't have it at the back of our mind that maybe we're being, the prices have been unfair, because we didn't see it that way. We just saw it as get what we think is best for us now and just leave it as that. But, as I got involved in the partnership and focusing mainly on foods, I think it has really like come to shine to see like young people, especially 16 to 17, are not being treated rightly, because the prices are horrendous. Like, it's just... They're actually, like, now that the cost of living crisis has increased, more young people can see that things that they will be able to normally afford, like on a daily basis, is no longer affordable. So, yeah.
And I think the point as well is that this really hits the kind of most vulnerable in society in some ways, and the people who are hardest hit by price rises are now the ones that are paying the most. So, someone going in, like you've mentioned, a 17-year-old or 16-year-old young carer would have to pay more in many of the big supermarkets for their shopping than someone on a huge kind of city salary. It doesn't seem fair at all. And I think that's where the kind of crux of the injustice is. It's really not fair.
And, we mentioned earlier, kind of how widespread is this injustice? Are there any any stats you can give us to paint a picture, to help our listeners paint a picture of how bad this problem really is?
So food insecurities is actually highest when the head of the household is between the ages of 16 to 24. So that obviously 16 to 18 gap is significant in that they won't be able to access it, and they are the most food insecure. They showed that 2 in 10 younger households classed as food insecure compared to 1 in 10 households for all ages.
And, in an ideal world, do you think we could ever live in a society again where there weren't loyalty schemes altogether?
So loyalty schemes are clearly something that supermarkets are using, and what we're calling for now is for them to be equalised. So that's a really tangible action that supermarkets can do right now that would affect the prices that young people are paying who are 16, 17 years old. So, I think a part of our campaign is getting supermarkets to change their current schemes. That has to be a top priority, because the current system is just not fair.
So what we were talking about earlier before the show then, Becca, about, those days, those shining days where meal deals you didn't have to have a loyalty card for. I feel like we might not see that again.
Yeah, so I think it's also important that actually the cost of living crisis has affected supermarkets and the inflation in prices, but we can still look back at the time where meal deals weren't even on a loyalty scheme. So it was accessible for everyone. And that's giving, for example, those 16 to 18-year-olds, that's their lunch. And you're limiting, actually, do they have that to spend on lunch? If you've not got it, sometimes meal deals, if you get what you want to get, it can end up at £6-7 rather than usually the meal deals around the £3 mark. So you're paying double, and you never used to have to do that. So it's looking back and getting those supermarkets to look back and see, is there a reason behind why we've needed to put them on there? Because actually probably sold more in the past of meal deals because it was so accessible for everyone.
I mean, that's a really good question. How are supermarkets justifying bringing loyalty cards just in so strongly, loyalty prices?
I mean, that is a really good question. I don't think I've heard any kind of direct justification from any of the supermarkets, but kind of reading around the issue and knowing the kind of wider landscape, they earn a lot of money from our data. So it's all about data. It's all about the data that we hand over every time we swipe that loyalty card. They know what we're buying. They know when we're buying it, where we're buying it, how much we're spending, how we're paying for it, etc., etc. And that data is worth loads of money. They then use that data to make themselves profit by knowing, where to market products, how to price them, where to position things in the aisles, all of these things. So our data is worth money, a lot of money, increasing amounts of money, particularly in today's world. And that's why the supermarkets are doing it. I don't think that's their kind of public justification, but that's definitely why the supermarkets are doing it. And I think what Becca said about meal deals is really interesting, because it's also worth mentioning that, you get loyalty prices on kind of branded, maybe kind of slightly fun items, like your Coca-Cola and your kind of fancy yogurts and etc.
As you mentioned
exactly,
earlier.
Yeah, stuff that maybe some people could do without, right? But you also have loyalty prices on really fundamental stuff. You have it on bread, you have it on butter, you have it on cheese. You also have it on things like plasters, Calpol, baby food, things like that. So things that really, really affect the real essentials that young carers or younger people or any of us really, need to buy to make our lives function properly. And I think some of those discounts on some of those types of products, you could question why they're necessary.
And looking forward then, I mean, is there a kind of timeline where we can hope to see some change, or is there a timeline that you'd like to see some change within? Yeah,
so the government are planning to publish their national food strategy. They've not given an exact time frame on that, but we think it's happening fairly soon. And that's a really important moment because I think the government needs to recognise in that there are a lot of actors who are responsible for making the food system better and making it work for young people. So I think that's a really key moment where hopefully supermarkets can play their part and end this unfair policy in their existing schemes.
And for our listeners who might want to find out more about the work you do, where can they find you online or out and about even? Yeah,
so you can find out more about the partnership by looking up Co-op and Bernardo's on Google, and we've got a dedicated web page. I don't know if any other tips for finding out about what Youth Advisory Group get up to.
Yeah, for the digital resources, you can find it on Bernardo's UK, on TikTok, and on Instagram.
Amazing, thank you. Well, thank you all so much for joining us. And just to reiterate, Ellie, what can we do if we want to help and get involved?
Show the supermarkets that you care, that you think it's unjust, that you think it's unfair, and you can do that by tagging them in our social posts.
Thank you all so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to this podcast from Which, the UK's consumer champion. You can find plenty more advice about what we discussed today in the show notes. There you'll also find a link to become a Which member for 50% off the usual price, an offer exclusively available to you, our podcast listeners. Joining Which will not only give you access to our product reviews, our app, one-to-one personalised buying advice, and every issue of Which magazine across the year, but you'll also be helping us to make life simpler, fairer and safer for everyone. Don't forget to hit subscribe wherever you're listening. That way you'll be notified whenever we release a new episode of Which Money, Which Shorts, or any other podcast that we make for you. And if you want to get in touch with us, then follow us on social media at Which UK or drop us an email to podcast@which.co.uk. See you next time.
Do you want to reduce your energy bills? Or maybe you want to use greener energy? Go solar and get a discount. Right now, Which members can get a 7.5% discount on solar panels and their installation if you use Heatable, a Which Trusted Trader approved service. You can also include a storage battery and EV charger, handy if you're looking at making the switch to an electric car. To make use of this exclusive offer, simply head to which.co.uk/solar-offer. That's which.co.uk/solar-offer before the 30th of September 2025. And if you're not already a Which member, you can grab a year's membership for 50% off the usual price. To do that, go to which.co.uk/podcast offer to get involved. Start your solar journey today. Go solar and get a discount with Which.